Each week on Culinary Confidential, Christina Cates, a seasoned foodie who has worked at some of New York City's top restaurants, will share her passion for the culinary world. Whether you're a professional chef, a restaurant enthusiast, or a lover of good food, Christina dives into the heart of hospitality, exploring the trends, triumphs, and challenges facing the food service profession. And you won't want to miss her chats with some of the most interesting and influential industry voices. And now, please take your seat at the table as Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates starts now, exclusively on AM 970, The Answer.
Good evening and welcome to Culinary Confidential. I'm Christina Cates, and if you're just tuning in or you've been with me since the very beginning, tonight is a big one. This show is produced in association with Lucas A. Ferrara and Shake It Off Live. This is episode 100. 100 episodes, over 200 guests, chefs, sommeliers, historians, editors, restaurateurs, entrepreneurs, people who've let me into their world for an hour at a time, week after week, for 2 years now. And I want to sit with that number for just a second because it doesn't feel real to say out loud. When I started this show, I was terrified, and I mean that honestly. I didn't know if anyone would listen, and it's genuinely hard to put yourself out there. I didn't know if I'd run out of things to say or guests to book or reasons to keep going. So I didn't think about episode 100. I didn't think about season 3 even happening or listeners in 40 plus countries or any of it. I just thought about the next show. One day at a time, one conversation at a time. That was the only way I could get through it without psyching myself out. And somewhere in that, and showing up week after week, asking questions, listening harder than I thought I knew how to, I grew into this, into being a host, into trusting my own instincts in the room. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of where the show sits right now, and I'm proud of where it's about to go, because season 3 starts this fall, and it's going to push this show further than I ever imagined when I was sitting alone with a microphone, hoping anybody would hit play. Just me and Ryan Pagano. So here's what I wanted 100 episodes to look like. Not a victory lap, not a highlight reel. I wanted it to be a chance to point the spotlight at something that matters more than any of that. Because if this show has taught me anything, it's that the food industry isn't just restaurants and recipes and reservations. It's people and it's systems. It's the stuff that happens far from the past, far from the dining room, that decides who eats well and who doesn't. That's why my guest tonight isn't here to talk only about a menu. Chef Ivy Stark has spent close to 3 decades building a career most cooks only dream about. She studied history at UCLA, of all things, before she ever picked up a knife professionally. Then went on to culinary school in New York and cut her teeth in some of the most respected kitchens in the country. She trained under Mary Sue Milliken and Susan Feniger at Border Grill. She worked the line at the Sign of the Dove and Cena, alongside Chef Norman LaPrice. She helped open Ciudad in Los Angeles, and for years, she was the name behind Dos Caminos, running the kitchens across all of its locations and becoming one of the most trusted voices on modern Mexican cuisine in this country. The kind of authority you'd see on the Today Show or CBS, explaining what real Mexican food actually is. She even wrote the book on it, like literally, Dos Caminos Mexican Street Food and Dos Caminos Tacos, as well as Whole Food Vegetarian and the High Protein Vegan Cookbook for Athletes. These days, you'll find her name attached to the Brooklyn Wilds and Ivy Stark MEXology. Still cooking, still building, still pushing plant-forward and modern takes on the cuisine she spent her whole year mastering. But tonight, she's here wearing a different hat. Chef Stark sits on the Food Council at City Harvest, the organization working to get food to New Yorkers who need it and to fight the kind of waste that happens every single day in an industry built on abundance. It's the side of this business that doesn't get the glossy photos or the reservation lists 6 weeks out. It's the harder work and the necessary work. And I wanted to give it the space it deserves, not as a footnote, but as the headline. Because 100 episodes in, I know what this show is for. It's for the stories that make people understand this industry a little differently than they did before they hit play. It's for the parts of the food world that don't usually get the mic. And it's for everyone listening who's ever wondered what happens to the food that doesn't make it to the plate, and who's making sure it finds one anyway. City Harvest was founded in 1982 and is recognized as New York City's first and largest food rescue organization. Since its founding, the organization has rescued more than 1 billion pounds of perfectly good food that otherwise would have gone to waste. This year alone, City Harvest expects to rescue and deliver more than 86 million pounds of nutritious food across New York City's 5 boroughs. That food is distributed free of charge to approximately 400 food pantries, soup kitchens, and community food programs throughout the city. Food insecurity remains a major issue in New York. 1 in 4 New York City children don't always know where their next meal will come from. Families with children now make more than 1 million visits every month to food pantries and soup kitchens. Visits by families with children have increased 97% since 2019. That statistic really puts things into perspective. Hunger isn't just affecting someone else. It's impacting more working families, more children, more neighbors that many of us realize. The need is growing in communities we pass through every single day. When you hear a number like 97% increase, it's clear that this isn't a temporary issue and it's a growing reality. That's why organizations like City Harvest are more important now than ever. And it's exactly why I'm so excited to have Chef Ivy Stark here tonight to talk about her role and impact. Welcome to Culinary Confidential. Such a pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you so much, Christina. It's really nice to talk to you.
Yes, and we have so many people in common, I've realized. Obviously, Shayna introduced us and brought us together. That's wonderful. Yes. But also Scott Lindquist, who I had on the show back in season 1, also about Mexican cuisine. I think you've worked with him in the past.
Scott is one of my best friends. We worked together from the very beginning of my career. Actually, I was an extern at Border Grill, and he was the chef de cuisine there when I started.
He's so great. Actually, when he was on, he was like, I want to come back on whenever you'll have me. Maybe I can get the two of you on a show together talking about Mexican cuisine. That would be a spitfire.
It would be really fun.
All right, but why you're here tonight, we're talking about City Harvest, this amazing organization that, you have the privilege to be a part of. I want to know what first pulled you into City Harvest's Food Council, and how long have you been involved?
I was trying to figure out how long I've been involved with the director of City Harvest, Julie, about a month ago when I saw her. And it's been so many years. The first I remember being involved with City Harvest is when I was working at Sign of the Dove, which is a really old school New York fine dining restaurant that's no longer there. It's a condominium now. But the City Harvest truck used to come every night at the end of service and come pick up our, things that we weren't going to use the next day, but that were still really good, like bread and things like that. And so that's how I initially just learned about them and started working with them. And it grew into, as they grew, they started doing charity events and educational events and, more volunteering. They do these wonderful mobile markets where the people in the area, whether it's the Bronx or Bed-Stuy where I live, they can come and get their weekly food package, and it's like a little farmer's market almost. So it's very, it has a lot of dignity to it. And so that's how it grew. I started doing all of those things, and now I'm on the Food Council. And, I participate in all of the many charity events that they do to raise money throughout the year. And I also volunteer at my local mobile market.
That's amazing. And you're in very good company on the Food Council, sitting amongst incredibly accomplished chefs. Chefs like Jeffrey Zakarian, Tom Colicchio, Eric Ripper, and these are just to name a very small amount that all have a seat with you. What's it like collaborating with that group? And have you learned anything from your fellow chefs?
Yes, absolutely. There's always something to learn. It's really amazing, and it feels so special to me to be included in that group, of course, because they are all just amazing chefs. And I've known them all for so long now. It's kind of like, oh, yeah, hey, Jeffrey, and they're all really just genuine, nice people that I get to see outside of the glamorous world of celebrity chefdom.
I love it. All right, what does the Food Council actually do? For listeners who don't know, can you explain what City Harvest Food Council is and how chefs contribute beyond, writing a check?
Oh, way beyond that. I mean, it's mostly for outreach, in order to outreach to the community, to teach them about what Cook Unity does, whether that be a television appearance, whether it's cooking at one of the mobile markets that I described, and doing sort of walk-around tasting events where people can come and taste our food and they contribute to, they write the check and they get to eat all this food from all these great chefs.
I mean, that sounds amazing. Was there a defining moment cool. or one encounter from those mobile markets that you've been mentioning or a rescue event that's really stuck with you?
I think, the first time I saw the truck and learned what they did was kind of a big deal for me. I was like, wow, why haven't we been doing this all along? This is the greatest idea ever because restaurants do have unused food, and a lot of that food for also grocery stores who also donate to City Harvest. So many food outlets that have so much leftover food that would get thrown away, and there's nothing wrong with it. That kind of stayed with me, and that's why I've stayed with the charity.
So City Harvest rescues perfectly good food every single day. What are some of the most common foods restaurants throw away that could actually feed families?
Definitely bread, butter, things that are highly perishable. Maybe we have some milk that can't be used in the next week, or we have some canned goods that we can donate. I bought too many cases of tomatoes. Darn it. What am I going to do with all these? I'm going to give them to City Harvest. It's like that.
I love it. All right, well, we got to talk about the scale of the need here, because food insecurity in New York City is reportedly at record levels. What does that look like on the ground from where you sit?
Well, people have no idea because, New York is generally a wealthy city for the wealthy people, but there are 7 million children in New York that are food insecure, and that's just children. And when you think about kids not having enough food to eat, it crushes my heart. So, I would ask people to look beyond the glitz and glamour of New York and understand that there are some people here who are very, very poor and that are very, very food insecure and need City Harvest help. It has become worse since the pandemic. It was terrible at that time because so many people were out of work. But now with the economic situation that we're all in, people need help.
Absolutely. I can actually remember watching the news during COVID when they were talking about keeping schools open in New York to do remote learning, blah, blah, blah. And one of the factors was we need schools to be open because a lot of kids get most of their meals during school time from the schools, which honestly, that was eye-opening for me as well. I had no idea. Yeah,
most kids that get breakfast and lunch at school, and if they do an after-school program, then they get a snack then too. So, they really rely on the schools to provide nutrition.
When a restaurant partners with City Harvest, what does that process actually look like? Is it easier than most owners think?
I think so. I mean, definitely there's some guidelines of what can be donated, what can't be donated, et cetera, but it's not hard to do it.
What are some things that can't be donated?
Well, things like, that I had my black beans that were on the line this evening.
Prepared things.
Well, there are some prepared things that are okay. But things that are left over from service, I would say, are not always donatable. But if I want to prepare a big, giant batch of soup, or if I'm making a giant batch of soup and I want to donate a gallon or two to City Harvest, I can if I've been approved as a so-called vendor for them.
Okay, well, that's awesome. Okay, let's talk about the restaurant industry's role. What do you wish more restaurant owners and chefs understood about their potential impact on hunger relief?
I mean, it's hard, especially in New York right now. Restaurant business is very difficult, so you feel like you're running around like a maniac all the time, putting out fires, literally, and that it's one of the things that gets overlooked. But it's so easy to do a small thing, we put a little bag out on our counter, and if people want to save lunch, feed hunger, if people want to donate their lunch that day, they put a $20 bill in there and it all goes to City Harvest. Things like that require no financial commitment on the restaurant. Things like just awareness, being able to, build awareness that this charity exists.
That's amazing. All right, tell us about City Harvest's Fire and Ice event. I think it happened, was that October of 2025 at the Glass House?
Yes.
What happens when 50 or more New York City chefs and mixologists show up for one cause?
Oh my gosh, it's such a great event. It's my favorite event of the year. It's just an incredible showing of the chef's best based around a theme. So every year there's a different theme. And last year it was fire and ice. And people decorate their tables to represent the fire and the ice. We had, fake ice and, sort of flame tablecloths and things like that. So it's visually exciting. There's always incredible musical performances. There's dancers. There's magicians. It just depends on the theme, but there's all kinds of entertainment all night long. And there's a live auction where you can bid on a dinner where Jeffrey Zakarian comes to your house and cooks dinner.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
Among others. It is pretty awesome. And there's also a silent auction for things like vacations or dinner for two at a restaurant or many, many different types of things.
What's the theme going to be this year?
It's a super fun event. You know what? I can't tell you without looking at my phone because I know I'm participating in it, but I don't remember.
Okay, well, we'll just have to stay tuned for that. Okay, if a listener wants to get involved with City Harvest, whether they're in the industry or not, where should they start?
They should start by going to cityharvest.org, their website. And I don't think they've chosen a theme yet. I've just looked at my calendar. But it will be happening Wednesday, October 28th. Go to cityharvest.org and it'll tell you about all of the many ways you can donate, volunteer, support, do outreach. Volunteering at the mobile markets and giving out the food doesn't require a ton of your time, and it's very, very satisfying to do it. The people that come to the markets are very friendly. It's a very friendly, warm atmosphere. And if you want to feel good and have a good day, start your day doing that.
I love that. City Harvest has grown into New York City's first and largest food rescue organization. Since its inception, it has rescued more than 1 billion pounds of nutritious food, and this year alone will rescue and deliver more than 86 million pounds to roughly 400 food pantries, soup kitchens, and community partners across the 5 boroughs. At a time when 1 in 4 New York City children is experiencing food insecurity, so this is so important. Up next, I want to get to know Ivy a little bit more intimately. Stay tuned to hear how her passion for food began at an early age in Colorado. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970, The Answer.
Welcome back to the show. Before Ivy Stark became one of New York's most celebrated chefs, she was a little girl in Colorado watching hospitality happen in real time. Her father managed luxury hotels, and those early experiences would ultimately shape the way she thinks about food, service, and taking care of people. Chef Ivy, welcome back to the show.
Hello.
You grew up in Colorado with a father who managed luxury hotels. What are some of your earliest memories of that world?
Oh, my gosh. I guess one of the most, things that stands out is my father taking us to the restaurant trade shows every year. And we would see all of this, and, this was long ago and it may date me, but we would see all of this crazy, buffet displays that were made with all chaufroid, all stuff that doesn't exist anymore. Just these beautiful, elaborate displays. And all kind, it struck me immediately. They were so colorful and beautiful. That's probably when I decided to become a chef.
I love it. Where in Colorado did you grow up? Because I've never been to Colorado.
I grew up Oh, well, you should go. It's one of the most beautiful states in the country. I wish I still lived there, although I love New York. I grew up in Boulder.
Oh, Boulder. That's okay. Is that the capital? I don't even know. Is it? Denver.
No, Denver's the capital. Boulder's about 30 minutes outside of Denver. It's right up in the foothills of the mountains, and it's where the University of Colorado is. So it's a college town.
I love it. Okay, what lessons did your father teach you that you still carry into your kitchens today?
I guess most importantly is that when you have someone sitting at a table in your restaurant, it is exactly like having someone sitting in your home, and you would treat them as you would treat a guest in your home. You know, there's no request too small. You know, there's no leaving people's glasses empty. You're the ultimate host, and the restaurant is your home.
I love that. And you know what? Like the kind of theme for this segment, I guess, would be that hospitality begins in your home, right? And as I was preparing for the show, I couldn't help but think like of my early childhood growing up and what that looked like in my house and how it translates into the hospitality world that I had a career in. And I can remember people would always come to our house. Like our house was like Grand Central Station. You know, we'd wake up in the morning, you'd never know who was sitting at the kitchen table having a coffee with my parents or who stopped by with a box of Dunkin' Donuts. And as a young person, I learned kind of how to host people, right? Like I can remember pouring Sambuca at 8 years old into little shot glasses for my father and a friend on a Tuesday night, or like getting coffee and like coffee plates and everything prepared. So like it really does start in those early formative years. And, you know, some people enjoy doing it. I did. And that's kind of, you know, what brought us here today. So growing up around hotels, did you always think you'd become a chef, or were there other dreams you had first?
Well, I had a lot of dreams. I mean, of course, you know, I dreamed of being a fashion designer. There were other things that I dreamed of being a doctor, which is kind of goes along with hospitality in that it's caring for people. And I think that that's the most important thing about hospitality, that I get the joy of caring for other people and making sure that they have a happy time and they're feeling good when they leave my restaurant. So I think that goes along with being a doctor. But yes, I'm a creative person, and fashion design was something that I was interested in. I thought it was pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe that's still on the horizon for you, you know? You never know.
You never know.
You know what I wanted to ask? What were the hotels that your father was operating? Like when you say luxury hotels, like in my head, I'm like, was he at the Ritz-Carlton, the Four Seasons? Like I just wanted to know.
Well, he wasn't at any major brands, but they were independent restaurants. His father actually was a hotel manager in New York, and he was a manager at Delmonico and the Carlisle, which is one of the ultimate luxury hotels. And he started as an elevator boy. I don't know if people know what that is anymore, but they actually control the elevator for you.
Like in Home Alone 2, Lost in New York.
Exactly, just like that guy. I mean, he has some crazy stories about even when he was a kid, he and the ambassador from Spain, I think, son, were flying paper airplanes out of the hotel, and at high floor of the hotel, and it caused some sort of incident or whatever. But so he grew up around it too. And then he was the manager in the Denver of the Regency Hotel, which was just the coolest place. Big, beautiful hotel. It had a cool nightclub called the Thieves Market, and it had a really cool, beautiful dining room. As you would imagine what it would look like in the 70s, it was like powder blue. These big high banquettes, and it was really, really cool. And so my dad actually would do the ice carvings for the Sunday brunch.
Oh my gosh, what a Renaissance man.
Yeah, he really is. I mean, he started as a Navy pilot and then went into his dad's business. And then also at the Hilton Harvest House in Boulder, Colorado, which is where he became part owner of that. And it was just also gorgeous resort, several pools, tennis courts, a big, what was called FAC, Friday Afternoon Club, where thousands of people would go, and there would be live music and people would be having a good time.
Now I want to have a good time. This sounds like so much fun. All right, Colorado and New York, though, they couldn't be more different. How did moving to New York change your perspective as a chef?
Well, I mean, I always wanted to work in sort of the big leagues and learn from the best, which is why I came here. My dad's from New York. My aunt still lives here, so I did spend a lot of time in New York as a kid, so it wasn't completely unfamiliar. But, you know, when I first started cooking, Colorado was not known for its cuisine. And now you have great restaurants in Boulder, some of the best. And so there wasn't much opportunity for me to grow a career out there. So I came here. And, you know, obviously the intensity level and the level of perfection and all of that was just opened my eyes wide open. And it was something that I really became passionate about. Loved it.
And you've worked with some really incredible chefs throughout your career. Looking back, which experiences do you think shaped you the most?
Gosh, well, working with Andy D'Amico at Sign of the Dove was really amazing because it was a very classic style restaurant, and I learned a lot of classic techniques. Like we were making tornade potatoes to serve. You know, so I learned a broad range of skills there because it was sort of Mediterranean French. I learned how to make ravioli. I mean, things like that I hadn't been exposed to making previously in my career. So it was great. It was very intense. It was very busy. It was super long hours. And although, you know, it was one of the best experiences I've had. And also working with Normand Laprise, who owns a restaurant still in Montreal, Tokay. He was one of the first to bring like very, very fresh flavors, lighter style of fine dining cooking. And I still have techniques and recipes from him that I love that.
Use. I love it. Well, so then we'll talk about more in the third segment about this, I guess, for the show, but I do want to know where that Mexican cuisine, the love for it kind of came into play.
Okay. Well, it came from my childhood in Colorado. You know, Colorado was once part of Mexico, so the influence of Latin America and Central America is very big there. There are a lot of Latin American people. There are a lot of Mexican restaurants. The state dish is green chili. It's really so. I guess it was my parents took us to a Mexican restaurant when we were little kids, and it became I'm speaking of my sister and myself, and we just loved it. It was our favorite restaurant. And then they took us to actual Mexico when we were about 8 or 9, and I just fell in love with the culture almost immediately. It felt like it was just something inside me all the time, everything about it, the colors, the people, the food, just everything.
I love that. I love it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that Colorado was so prevalent with the Mexican cuisine. Like when you hear Mexican cuisine, you think like Tex-Mex, right? Like in Texas or some of those other bordering states by the border, Arizona, New Mexico. But I really didn't know that Colorado had that going on there. So that's crazy.
Well, Colorado shares a border with New Mexico and Arizona. I mean, just a tiny corner of it, but there's a lot of influence that came up through New Mexico into the San Luis Valley and in southern Colorado. And it stayed.
What advice would you give to a young woman hoping to build a career in hospitality today?
I would give the advice that I followed myself, although no one gave it to me. I just sort of did it. But just go work at the best possible places that you can to learn from great chefs, learn those techniques. No job is too small. If you can get a job working the cold station somewhere, you're going to learn from all the stations. And don't jump into a management position before you've learned all of those techniques. Spend at least 5 years cooking in great restaurants before you take your first sous chef role.
I think that's great advice. I think that's absolutely great because then you're not getting in over your head and you're learning the nuts and bolts of everything before you elevate. And this just reminded me, when I was working at Tavern on the Green, I was very young. I was like 19, 20 years old. And they hired me as a hostess and they made me a manager. But at one point, I was in this like training program there, and we had this huge event. It was like 2,000-3,000 person event that took over the whole property. And I was assigned to work the coat check. And I remember going home that night and saying to my parents, they want me to work the coat check. Can you imagine? Like, I'm a manager at this place. They want me to work the coat check. And my dad said to me, he goes, if you're going to work the coat check, then you be the best person in that coat check. And you make sure if anyone hands you a coat, you hang it properly, you store it nicely, and you do everything the best to your ability, and the cream always rises to the top. And that was like some of the best advice I ever got.
That's excellent advice.
Yes. It's amazing how those early experiences continue to influence not only the food you create, but the impact you're making across New York. After the break, we're talking about where food, hospitality, and community are all headed next. Stay tuned. You're listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970 The Answer.
Over the last 30 years, Newman Ferrara, a New York City law firm, has evolved into a national practice focused on real estate, commercial, litigation, civil rights, class actions, and other complex litigation, representing many of the city's largest property owners, managing agents, and thousands of tenants. Newman Ferrara handles some of the nation's most significant class actions and civil rights matters. Newman Ferrara at 55 East 59th Street, New York City. Go online to newmanferrara.com. That's newmanferrara.com. Listen to the firm's name partner, Lucas Ferrara, every Saturday at 10 a.m. on Dottie Herman's longest-running real estate radio program, Eye on Real Estate, on AM 970. A real estate lawyer for 35 years, Lucas is a professor at New York Law School and is also a published author with books on real estate and New York's landlord-tenant law. Tune in Saturdays at 10 a.m. to hear Lucas's unique perspective and advice on Eye on Real Estate.
Welcome back to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates on AM 970, The Answer.
Welcome back to the show. Chef Ivy, we've talked about your journey and the incredible work City Harvest is doing today. Now I want to look ahead and what the future of food and hospitality looks like. If you could change one thing about the restaurant industry, what would it be?
Oh, gosh, that's a gigantic question.
I only ask gigantic questions around here.
It's okay. I appreciate it. I guess I would, it is slowly changing, but I would say the amount of hours required to work in the kitchen in order to, sustain a job in New York. I know it's different other places, but when I was working, I would work 8 in the morning until 11 at night with a break, short break in the middle. And I don't think people should have to do that. I don't think it's necessary. I think that in some cases there have been very public abuses of that. I won't name any names. And I do think that there's a way to manage it so people can get by on, 50 hours a week. It can be done in 50 hours a week.
Like just a better quality of life for everyone working in the industry, I think would be something I would want to change. Like even for myself as a woman who, once I had children, I had to walk away from the industry because you can't always do both, right? You can't be present in your home life and in your work life, especially in a management position, because your life becomes the restaurant. And I don't know so many other jobs where you have to eat, sleep, and breathe the job that you're in, like you do the restaurant industry.
You definitely do. And it's really hard for people who want to have families, which is kind of why I'm single. Like I was working until 11 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. And the day off, I was exhausted. There was no time for dating. And then if I did want to date, the person I was dating would be expecting me to cook dinner for them because I was, you're a chef.
Right.
That's great.
I know this.
No, I'm not cooking.
Listen, the person I decided to marry was someone who was also in the industry. And you know what? When we could go out at 12 o'clock at night, when we both got out of work, it worked. And let me tell you, that was not a good decision. But, sometimes you just have to, date who you're working with or whatever. So, that's that.
It's usually the case.
All right. Do you think today's diners are more interested in sustainability and food waste than they were, something like 10 years ago?
Oh, definitely. I think that people weren't even really aware of that sort of thing 10 years ago. And now it's come into play in food, the restaurant business, clothing, everything. We're trying to do all we can to not waste things, to be able to reuse things, recycle things. We use recyclable to-go containers that are made out of bamboo. And they just biodegrade. So, that is really a big trend in restaurants.
You've balanced restaurants, television, writing, and philanthropy. Which role has taught you the most about yourself personally?
I mean, certainly working on the restaurants has taught me a lot about myself and learning how to interact with other people, communication, managing people. It's not something that you know inherently how to do, and it's really actually a hard thing to learn, and it takes a while. So that was important. Writing, I always thought it would be easy to write a cookbook. It is not easy.
Everyone says that.
It is not easy. It requires a large attention to detail, and I think most chefs have a sort of limited attention span, which is why we work in the kitchen, because there's always something popping around us.
Yep.
And, the philanthropy just taught me how many people are truly struggling in a very, very wealthy city, which, I had no idea.
You know what? I feel like I need to get involved in City Harvest now, too, and to help make an impact. But maybe doing the show was the first step.
It's really fun.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
And it is a lot of fun.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your plant-based cookbooks, right? You have Whole Food Vegetarian and the High Protein Vegan Cookbook for Athletes. Your cookbooks show that vegetables can be every bit as exciting as meat. What inspired you to explore plant-forward cooking?
Well, it's kind of the way I eat, and it's kind of the way I've always eaten. My mom was really into vegetarian food, and she used to cook for us out of this very, very old cookbook called The Vegetarian Epicure. It's still around, but, it was like really big in the 70s, and Boulder was quite the sort of hippie town. So I've always kind of eaten that way. When I was in college, I really didn't eat much meat at all. I mean, mainly because I couldn't afford to, but I just like the way it makes me feel, and I like that people are embracing it. So I wanted to, although I have a passion for Mexican food, and that does involve meat, I want to offer something to the people who choose to eat plant-based food.
I think that's great. But when people hear plant-based, they often think they'll be sacrificing flavor. How do you change their minds?
Well, that's my big mission, and it has been for a while, that you're not just going to eat a bowl of hay. There are so many delicious vegetables, and incorporating some of my Mexican techniques and flavors into those bowls. Ingredients that come from Central America, plantains, black beans, quinoa, they're all incredibly healthy. And people don't realize actually a lot of Mexican food is naturally vegetarian. It's not the Tex-Mex stuff that you see. Mexico has a lot of poor regions that are some of the best cooking regions in the country. Dinner might be just a mole and a tortilla, and that's all vegetarian, but it's still absolutely delicious and rich and flavorful.
Do you know, I went to Mexico City recently with Shayna, our mutual friend Shayna.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I mean, we took a trip down there because I had Handshake Speakeasy on the show as the season 2 opener, which they're out of Mexico City. Cool. They were voted best bar in the world. So obviously her and I, both being foodies, we wanted to indulge, try some Michelin star restaurants. And I got to tell you, when I got back, I couldn't believe how many insects I ate while I was there. I wasn't prepared for that, but every meal had some kind of ants in it, crickets, whatnot, worms. And I didn't realize that Mexican cuisine was so rich in that rustic kind of food sourcing.
Well, I think a lot of the fine dining chefs now are embracing some of the roots of Mexican cuisine, whereas 20 years ago, all the Mexican chefs wanted to cook Italian or French food. They don't want to cook Mexican food. That was, but now they're embracing native ingredients, which is great. I really like chapulines, or the little crickets, myself.
You do? Do you have them incorporated, like the Dos Caminos cookbooks that you've done the 2, right? Do you have anything like that incorporated in those recipes?
Yes, I have a guacamole con chapulines, and I love the way I like to eat chapulines is on nice tortilla with just a little bit of guacamole or avocado, and the chapulines on top and folded up. And I believe I have a recipe. I can't remember which one of the Dos Caminos cookbook. Probably Street Food has a recipe for guacamole with chapulín.
Wow. And I felt very adventurous when I tried this because this isn't something I would normally do. But I felt like, that saying, when in Rome, when in Mexico City, if I'm going to eat some crickets in this salad, then I'm going to do that. And it was a lot crunchier than I anticipated and didn't have like a ton of flavor, which I was thankful for.
I think they taste sort of like, based on how they're prepared, they're usually prepared with some chili, and I think they taste kind of like bacon.
Yeah. I had one night I had some in a assorted nut medley, so it just tasted like salty and whatever that was prepared with. Okay,
you're making my mouth water. I want to go to Mexico City right now.
Talking about the crickets, oh my goodness. Okay, if we sat down again 10 years from now, what would you hope has changed in the fight against hunger?
I would hope that there would be more consideration as far as, New York, we live in a little bit of a bubble, but free school lunches, I don't think kids should be charged for school lunch. I think there was a real stigma with that when I was growing up, like the kid who didn't have lunch or couldn't, afford a lunch punch card. So getting kids food, I think is incredibly important for them to be able to learn and grow. And I just think more awareness that it might be your neighbor who has two jobs that's working and you would never know that they're struggling to put food on the table, and that it could be anybody that was hungry and that needed a charity like City Harvest. It's not just what people would assume.
Whether you're cooking vibrant Mexican cuisine, creating plant-forward recipes, or helping feed New Yorkers through City Harvest, there seems to be a common thread of making food approachable, nourishing, and joyful. Is that the legacy you're hoping to leave as a chef?
Absolutely. That's why I got into cooking in a more casual style. Fine dining, for me, it was very fussy and it was very technical. I like being able to have some joy while I'm throwing things into a pot and cooking them. And I want people to feel, that vibrance and happiness when they're eating the food. In fact, our best-selling plant bowl is called the Feliz Bowl, which is the happy bowl.
I love that. Ivy, tonight's conversation has been about so much more than food. It's been about using hospitality as a force for good, recognizing that what ends up on our plates and what doesn't has the power to change lives. Whether it's rescuing food, supporting local organizations like City Harvest, or simply being more intentional in our own kitchens, every one of us has a role to play. Thank you so much for reminding us that great hospitality doesn't end when the meal is over. It continues when we care for our communities.
Thank you so much, Christina. It was a pleasure.
And that brings us to our ingredient of the week. As we wrap up tonight's show, we're going to do something a little different. Normally, this is where I would feature our ingredient of the week, something to inspire you in the kitchen. But after tonight's conversation with Ivy Stark and the incredible work being done at City Harvest, it didn't feel right to talk about an ingredient. Instead, I want to leave you with something even more important. This week, our ingredient is compassion. Because the truth is, food has always been about more than what's on your plate. It's about family and community, dignity, opportunity, and making sure everyone has a seat at the table. So instead of giving you a recipe, I'm giving you a challenge. Let's think about food security in 3 ways: locally, nationally, and globally. Locally, look around our community, your community, wherever you live. Volunteer at a food pantry. Donate a few shelf-stable items the next time you're grocery shopping. Support restaurants and businesses that rescue food instead of wasting it. Even 1 extra jar of peanut butter or 1 box of pasta can really make a difference. Nationally, support organizations like City Harvest, Feeding America, Meals on Wheels, or No Kid Hungry. Encourage your workplace to organize a food drive. Learn more about food waste and how each of us can reduce it on our end in our own homes. And globally, remember that food doesn't stop at our borders. Support organizations working around the world to provide meals during crisis, such as World Central Kitchen. Choose companies committed to ethical and sustainable food systems, and remember that reducing waste at home has an impact far beyond your own kitchen. Here's this week's challenge. The next time you're at the grocery store, don't just shop for yourself. Buy just 1 extra item. 1 can of soup, 1 box of cereal, 1 jar of peanut butter, 1 bag of rice, then donate it. It may not seem like much, but imagine if every listener did the same thing this week. Thousands of small acts have a way of becoming something much bigger. And that's really what hospitality is all about. Not just welcoming people into our homes or our restaurants, but making sure no one is left behind. Remember, food has the extraordinary power to connect us, to comfort us, and to change lives. This week, let's make sure everyone has a seat at the table. Thank you for listening to Culinary Confidential with Christina Cates, Sunday nights at 9 p.m. on AM 970 The Answer. As we wrap up tonight's conversation, I want to thank Ivy Stark for joining us and for sharing not only the incredible work being done by City Harvest, but also reminding us that fighting hunger starts with all of us. If tonight's conversation moved you, there are so many ways to help. You can make a financial donation, volunteer your time, organize a food drive in your community, or simply help spread awareness. Every meal rescued, every dollar donated, and every hour volunteered helps ensure that good food reaches New Yorkers who need it most. To learn more or get involved, visit City Harvest and see how you can make a difference. Next week, we're shifting gears and taking you inside the world of luxury hospitality with Ryan Wagner. From helping shape unforgettable experiences at iconic brands like RH and Ralph Lauren to redefining what exceptional hospitality looks and feels like today, Ryan has built a career around creating moments people never forget. Whether you're in the industry or simply appreciate incredible service, you won't want to miss this conversation. Until then, I'm Christina Cates, and this is Culinary Confidential. Thanks for listening and have a good night.
The preceding program is sponsored by Shake It Off Live, LLC.